Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan, along with Ryan Smith, coming your way again from Cape Coral, where it's been raining and cold. I'm glad to report because I know what you're going through back home, Ryan.
I was just about to ask you, Bruce, are you keeping up with the great weather here in Cleveland? Do you know what temperature it is right now?
You know, it's actually snowing in the state of Florida. I saw you got below zero temps, but it's snowing in Florida, in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
And there's actually sleet here in Cape Coral, Fort Myers area. Amazing.
Yeah, I saw this. It's I think South Carolina's got some snow as well. My mom let me know it
Georgia.
snowed in Florida this morning. Absolutely crazy. -4, as I said right now. Frigid cold, but luckily it's warm in the studio. As you can tell, I don't have my jacket on.
Good for you. We've got so much to cover today, including the NFL playoffs. Have a segment on the Cavs and the Browns as well. And Mark Lawrence is going to join us, the famous handicapper from playbooksports.com. And he's going to join us to handicap the two championship games this coming weekend. So that'll be fun to reunite with Mark. All right, let's get first things first, and that is the national championship victory by the Ohio State Buckeyes, 34-23, your final score. You know, the last time the Buckeyes won the national championship back in 2014, the first year of the new 4-team playoff format, head coach Urban Meyer proudly hoisted the national championship trophy. Well, Monday night, Meyer's successor, Ryan Day, hoisted the national championship trophy in the first ever expanded 12-team playoff. And here we are celebrating the Ohio State national title. Now, unless they expand the playoff format again, I'm hoping that, think of this, I'm hoping that we don't have to wait for another expansion of the playoff system in order to win another national championship, because the last time it happened was the first year of the 4-year. So think of this. In the old 4-team format, the Buckeyes wouldn't have even qualified for the playoffs following their second loss of the season against arch rival Michigan. So what if Ryan Day keeps losing to that team up north? If he keeps winning national championships, I don't care if he never beats Michigan, as long as he is the head coach at Ohio State. Now, if you are one of the faithful who would respond to me by saying, oh, how can you say that? How can you say that? Then you've got to be the biggest idiot in the history of this planet. Get real. Morons like that would rather beat Michigan than winning the national championship? Come on. Think how stupid that is. Now, I will remind you, before we started the season, I warned that the importance of rivalries like Ohio State and Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, not so much Auburn now because they're a little down, but you know what I'm saying. The importance of rivalries will be diminished greatly with the new 12-team format. And this Buckeyes national championship proves it. Is anybody still in mourning about losing to Michigan? Come on. What a decisive performance against an inspired, extremely well-coached Notre Dame team. The future is bright for the Irish as long as Marcus Freeman is leading the way, in my opinion. Think of this. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU because he felt that gave him a better chance to win a national championship. Now, I wonder what was going through Kelly's mind as he saw his former team come back and get within one score with only 4:15 to go in the game. But the Buckeyes were not to be denied, facing a 3rd and 11 at their own 34-yard line. Will Howard found Jeremiah Smith streaking down the field for that big 57-yard gain to get the Bucs into position to kick the game-clinching field goal, and that was it. Howard was fantastic, completing his first 13 passes and wound up throwing for 231 yards. Quinshon Judkins scored 3 touchdowns. Ohio State scored touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. The Buckeyes led 31-7 halfway through the third quarter. Think of that. And all the more credit to Freeman, Riley Leonard, and the rest of the Irish team for not giving up at that point. Howard wound up surpassing Joe Burrow's record for most postseason passing yards. Of course, he had 2 more games to do it, but nonetheless, the Kansas State transfer averaged 283 passing yards per game during the regular season. And with these playoff games, he's up that average to now 306 yards per game. Amazing. Overall, the Buckeyes outgained the Irish 445 to 308. The road to this championship did not seem possible. After the demoralizing defeat to Michigan, Ohio State was seeded 8th in the new 12-team format. The Buckeyes destroyed a good Tennessee SEC team. Then the Bucs not only got their revenge against Oregon, the only undefeated team in the field in the playoffs and the number 1 seed, but they shocked the Ducks, and they left them awestruck with that one-sided victory. Then Texas, in their first year as a member of the so-called unbeatable SEC, and now this decisive win against Notre Dame. Just think, just about everybody was calling for Dave's head after the Michigan loss. Now he joins Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, and Urban Meyer, bringing a national championship to Columbus. The Buckeyes may well have been the most talented team in the country. Of course, dishing out $20 million in NIL money should attract the top talent, high schoolers, and transfers. Ryan Day's win percentage at Ohio State is .875. That ranks second all-time among FBS coaches with at least a minimum of 50 starts. And ironically, the only coach he trails is the late, great Knute Rockne of Notre Dame. How about this? It was only 2 months ago, so many were calling for Day's job. Now the question is, will Day decide to stay at Ohio State? And I say that because if you don't think NFL teams will now approach Day, then you don't believe that President Trump signed a ton of executive orders on Inauguration Day. Ryan.
Yeah, I think it was the most executive orders signed on Inauguration Day in presidential history there, Bruce. But to come back, yeah, you mentioned Ohio State definitely wouldn't have been in this 14 playoff if it was back to the 14 playoff, that is. And I'm not convinced that Notre Dame would have either, to be honestly with you. I mean, you had Texas, Oregon, Penn State, maybe, and Georgia would have gotten in over Notre Dame. So very possible, but it came down to a classic. I'm glad that Notre Dame made it a game in the second half. If Brian Kelly was still the coach, it would have been 50-0 at the final ring. But I think you're in the minority, Bruce, which is crazy, but I'm so serious. I think you might be in the minority of these lunatic fans that are so obsessed with Michigan that they'd rather beat them than win a national championship. It's lunacy, and I've just become aware of that this year, Bruce, that these Ohio State fans are like that. It's quite mind-boggling, but as non-Ohio State fan, I couldn't be happier for Ryan Day. He seems like he's been through a lot. The guy's super stressed out. Seems like he's been president for 4 years at his time in Ohio State when you see the before and after pictures there, but great win for the Buckeyes. They earned it. You talked about the trial they had to get there. Couldn't think of a better man for it to happen to than Ryan Day, and good for all those seniors that came back to do exactly what they did this year.
You really think I'm in the minority about that?
I might be hyperbolizing that. I might be hyperbolizing that, but Bruce, I'm not kidding you. I think it might be 60-40, that close. Seriously. They're insane.
You know, there's a lot of insane people in this world, and particularly in this country. I won't get into politics and the way people vote, but my God, help those that think that they would rather beat Michigan than winning a national championship. Sorry, I think they should be locked up in a padded room. All right, when we come back, we'll dive into the NFL playoffs. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan, here on the Big Play Sports Network. Great to be back with you. Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Washington 45, Detroit 31. What? Detroit lost? Turnovers. And those turnovers resulted in points for the victorious Cinderella Commanders gave them a shot at winning the championship game. First time since 1991. So the Detroit Dream season going 15-2 comes to a demoralizing conclusion at home, no less. The Lions haven't won a championship since 1957. They are one of only 4 teams to not even reach the Super Bowl, yet alone win it. If you're curious, the other 3 are the expansion Jacksonville Jaguars, the expansion Houston Texans, and, oh, by the way, our beloved Cleveland Browns. Rookie Jaden Daniels was nearly flawless. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and didn't take a sack. Washington took advantage of the banged-up Detroit defense, rushing for 182 yards and 3 scores. Washington's time of possession was 33 minutes, 59 seconds. Now, what's important about that statistic is that Detroit was second in the entire National Football League this year in winning time of possession. It's not like Jared Goff and company didn't move the ball. The Lions gained 521 yards and they scored 31 points. But when you commit 5 turnovers, it doesn't matter. Goff took responsibility for the loss after the game. He threw picks, he fumbled, and each time it resulted in Washington scores. The combination of turnovers and not being able to stop Daniels and the Washington offense were the difference in this game. The Commanders averaged 6.5 yards per carry. Daniels threw for 299 yards and rushed for 51. Another factor was those 4th down conversions for Washington, especially after the Lions' stupid 12 men on the field penalty that gave Washington another opportunity, and they capitalized on it by scoring a touchdown. How about Washington rookie defensive back Mike Sangristo, who had 2 interceptions, one of which was on that ill-advised trick play that backfired? The young secondary talent now has a chance to play and win the ultimate prize in pro football. Remember, last season, he was a key member of the national championship Michigan Wolverines team. Daniels became the second rookie quarterback to knock off a top-seeded team. He joins Joe Flacco, who led Baltimore to a big win versus Tennessee back in 2009. After beating Tampa Bay last week, That win is six comeback wins in a row and fifth in regulation or overtime. Detroit coach Dan Campbell is well known for gambling, but it was this Washington team and coach Dan Quinn who gambled and won. Washington was 3 of 4 on fourth down conversions. Washington outscored Detroit 28-14 in the second quarter. That's the highest scoring quarter in NFL playoff history. Jaden Daniels, the former LSU standout, is having his greatest rookie season in NFL history, arguably the best ever. He's proving critics like me wrong, saying that you can't get to the Super Bowl or win it with a rookie quarterback. Of course, that still remains to be seen. For Jared Goff, he is now 4-5 in the playoffs, dating back to his days with the Rams. And by the way, the 45 points scored by Washington is the most in franchise history in a road playoff game. What a devastating loss and end of the season this is for the Lions and their fans. As for Washington, they now have an opportunity to make history in the next week's NFC Championship game versus Philadelphia. Ryan?
Yeah, man. What I thought CJ Stroud did last year was amazing, his rookie season, but Jaden Daniels has made that even look like child's play. Just the poise that kid plays with at just 24 years old is absolutely crazy. And credit all the world to Washington. New head coach, new OC, new ownership group, by the way. You bring in vets like Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler. You pair it with a superstar young quarterback. Man, they're blowing it away. I cannot believe, I still can't fathom somehow they beat Detroit. But Jaden Daniels is the real deal, and we're going to be looking at, he's the next star, right? The next 5 years, it's going to be the Jaden Daniels show in the NFC. And it's about damn time, Bruce, because the amount of talent in quarterback position in the AFC has trumped in the NFC so hard. I'm glad to see a young superstar in the NFC coming to life like Jaden Daniels is for Washington.
Great point. Kansas City 23, Houston 14. Patrick Mahomes has never lost a divisional round game. Mahomes connected with his star receiver Travis Kelce 7 times for 117 yards and a touchdown. Now, it's truly amazing to me that Kelce finds a crease and is able to get open time and time and time again. You'd think defensive coordinators would figure out a way to double or triple team him. Heck, I'd put 6 guys on him and take your chances. The Kansas City defense was excellent. And despite CJ Stroud playing a great game, they dragged him down 8 times. Stroud was 19 of 28 for 245, no picks, but no touchdowns. He had a quarterback rating of 92.7. Meanwhile, Mahomes, he looked rusty. Why not? Chiefs haven't really played their regulars, that is, since Christmas Day. Still, though, when it counted the most, Mahomes came through, especially on that touchdown throw to Kelce, threading the needle. Amazing. The Chiefs are the 4th team in NFL history to follow back-to-back Lombardi trophies by advancing to the conference title game, and the 3 previously lost. We'll see. On a personal note, Mahomes became a father for the 3rd time last Sunday when his wife Brittany gave birth, and this was 2 Sundays ago. And Taylor Swift, of course, was accompanied in her suite by WNBA superstar Caitlin Clark, who grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, and has been a lifelong Chiefs fan. Mahomes has now tied Joe Montana for second most wins by a starting quarterback. And guess who the first guy is? Tom Brady. Andy Reid becomes just the 4th coach in NFL history to win 300 games. And by the way, how about with Houston cornerback Chris Boyd nearly shoving assistant coach Frank Ross to the ground. It was stupid of Boyd to take his helmet off and fling it like he did. Of course it resulted in an unsportsmanlike penalty. What's even more amazing to me is that Boyd wasn't benched or even reprimanded for that stupidity. And then there was the intentional safety the Chiefs took near the end of the game, which allowed Houston to cover the 9.5-point spread. Now, if you bet at game time, you were in trouble. You got to be going insane. But in my opinion, it should serve as a message to gamblers in the future. If you like the chalk and you figure the line is going to go up, place your bet earlier in the week. This championship Kansas City team all season found ways to win games. Get this. They made history in this victory against Houston, becoming the first team in NFL history to win a game where they were outgained by at least 100 yards while not forcing a turnover. NFL teams were 0-49 in this situation in the playoffs. This will be the Chiefs' 7th consecutive AFC championship game. Only 3 NFL coaches have more career wins than Reid. Don Shula with 347, Bill Belichick with 333, and George Halas with 324. The Chiefs can become the first team since the 1985 Chicago Bears to win 15 regular season games and go on to win the Super Bowl. Detroit had that chance as well before losing to Washington. Ryan?
Yeah, Chiefs beat the Texans, move on to the AFC Championship. Color me shocked. Now is when the real fun begins. You get Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen again. I hope to God the Bills can finally get over that mountain and just shut the Chiefs out. But, Bruce, I'm glad you mentioned that the 2 biggest stars weren't even on the field. They were in the box watching the game together, Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark. That was pretty cool to see. But back to your stat about the no turnovers, 100 yards outgaining them. I believe, Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, every team that won in the divisional round this season outscored the losing counterpart, which is just absolutely nuts. You never see that. But great for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has a chance to make history. Do I hope it happens? I'm going to be a hater and say no, but the inevitable happened. You got Mahomes back in the AFC Championship game for 7 straight years, Bruce.
Yeah. We'll take a look at the other 2 playoff games when we return following the break. Bonus time with Drennan, Big Play Sports Network. Hi, Bruce Drennan here from my good friends out in Benner Nissan. Drove the Nissan Rogue, my wife and I, down here for this wonderful experience in Florida. Can't brag enough about it. Used to have the Murano. Love that too. Check out the all-new 2025 Nissan Kicks, the exclusive intelligent around view monitor. Take advantage of the new Nissan Maintenance Care that, of course, gives you 3 oil changes. It provides the first 2 years, 24,000 miles on qualifying new 2025 Nissan vehicles. And of course, Miller Nissan been in business for so many years, teaming up now with Infinity of Akron, Infinity of Beechwood. Such a selection for you. Service staff, right on down from the top, of course, Ray Sminchak, the owner, Jamie, he partnered with the Infinity groups. And you're talking about a generation family-owned operated company, certainly emphasizing and focusing on the high level of customer care and service, pillar in the local community. I have been teamed up with them and proud to be their spokesperson now for several years. I swear by Menor Nissan and now Infinity of Akron, Infinity of Beechwood. Love them, and you will too. Service department, second to none. They encourage you to come on out and test drive a vehicle. You won't regret it. Go to the website. That's menornissan.com. Get more information. menornissan.com. I love you, Menor Nissan. So glad to have you with us. Bonus time with Drennan, Big Play Sports Network. Philadelphia 28, the LA Rams 22. 2,000-yard record setter Saquon Barkley had 2 of his 26 carries for 78 and 62-yard touchdown runs. He gained 205 yards and scored 2 TDs in almost unbearable conditions. And Jalen Hurts was 15 of 20 with no picks, and he rushed for 70 yards with a touchdown, had a quarterback rating of 101.6. That led the Eagles back to the NFC Championship game and another chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. This will now be the 5th time this Eagles team will host the NFC Championship game since 2003. The Rams can only blame themselves for this loss. They were very much in this game throughout, but crucial, costly turnovers were critical in giving Hurts and Barkley opportunities that they indeed capitalized on. Barkley's 205 yards rushing are the fifth most in a playoff game. Philadelphia general manager Howie Roseman signed free agent Barkley to a 3-year, $38 million contract. Think it was worth it? Barkley is also now only the fifth player since 1950 to have two 200-yard rushing games versus the same team in a season. Eagles QB Jalen Hurts hurt his left leg in the third quarter and was obviously in pain. After visiting the medical tent, though, he came back into the game wearing a brace. Asked about it after the game, he said, "I'm sure I'll get asked about it a lot, but I don't know if I can answer that right now. I'm going to go and enjoy this victory." Hurts says that he'll be okay for the NFC Championship game against Washington. I thought a significant key to this win for Philadelphia was that they averaged 8.4 yards per carry, especially in these conditions. They were able to run the ball before the snow came and during the downfall. Also, Jalen Carter was tremendous on defense, 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Those 2 fourth quarter fumbles doomed the Rams. They were in the game, but critical mistakes. 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, Hurts and the Eagles outplayed Kansas City in the first half. They led 24-14 at the break. However, they were outscored 24-11 in the second half and lost the game 38-35. Now, whether they get a chance to avenge that loss depends on whether they can beat the upstart Washington Commanders at home next week for the conference championship. Philadelphia is a 5 to 6 point favorite. Ryan?
Yes, Saquon Barkley's making the running back position cool again. It's crazy to think. I don't think right now the money he's making would even come close to cracking the top 25 in terms of what wide receivers are getting paid. So that's a thought for you. And he's the most important player right now in the NFL, in my opinion, outside of the quarterback position, obviously. And it's crazy to think that Howie Roseman went out and got this guy for a decent deal, given the talent that Saquon is. And now he's completely ran them literally into the NFC Championship. Good for them. Now you flip it over to the Rams. Stafford's considering retiring. Cooper Kupp's a trade candidate. They got a lot of questions this offseason to address. Good for Sean McVay to even get there in the first place, I think. And they really did have a chance to go and win that game. But as you said, Bruce, 2 costly fumbles led the Eagles back to the NFC Championship.
Think of the differential in contracts between football and baseball, Ryan.
Oh, it's mind-boggling.
What did Soto get? Break it down to what his contract is worth for 3 years compared to Barkley's.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Now they're both superstar players, but just think of the differential between football and baseball. And I harp on that because I don't think people realize the difference in economic structure, the tremendous difference in the two sports. All right, Buffalo 27, Baltimore 25. After 3 straight losses in the postseason, Josh Allen and company rewarded the home fans with a deserving victory to get them back to the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. Allen performed like a deserving MVP. 16 of 22, no picks in a very adverse weather condition like they had in Philly. He used his legs, scoring 2 touchdowns, one of 1 yard and one of 4 yards. The Buffalo defense gave up 271 yards rushing in that week 4 loss to Baltimore. But last Sunday evening, they allowed Baltimore only 176 yards on the ground. Derrick Henry was held to under 100 yards, gaining only 84. In this game, the much maligned Buffalo defense forced 3 turnovers, which resulted in 10 points for the Bills. And after Lamar Jackson connected with Likely for that 24-yard touchdown to give the Ravens a chance to tie the game, the usually sure-handed Mark Andrews couldn't secure the Jackson pass on that 2-point conversion attempt, and he'll have nightmares about that incompletion probably for the rest of his life. And he was wide open. Now, to rub salt into the wound, how about the Buffalo fans are donating money to Andrew's favorite charity because, oh, gosh. The Bills finished 10-0 at home this year, And that includes a 30-21 victory over the previously unbeaten Kansas City Chiefs in Week 11. But now they're going to have to beat Kansas City at Arrowhead, where they've been eliminated twice in the last 4 years. Remember, 3 years ago when the Bills led by 3 points with 13 seconds to go and wound up losing in overtime, 42-36. Lamar Jackson wound up 18 of 25 for 254 passing, 6 carries for 39 yards rushing. He actually wound up with a better quarterback rating than Allen, 122.5 to 113.1. Jackson is now 3-5 in the postseason, 1-5 in the playoffs when committing a turnover. Baltimore fell to 5-8 in division round and 1-4 in their last 5 under John Harbaugh. This was Josh Allen's 11th turnover-free game. Back to Mark Andrews and that drop that would have tied the game. He refused to meet with the media, was nowhere to be seen after the game. Last year, the Ravens were the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they got beat at home by Kansas City, you'll recall. So it's another disappointing finish to a team that I believe year in and year out has been one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire National Football League. Another key, in my opinion, was how relentlessly the Bills blitzed Johnson and prevented him from being comfortable in the pocket, especially in the first half. To be more precise, 46.7% of Jackson's dropbacks, the Bills blitzed him, and they sacked the elusive superstar twice. We hear coaches over and over again say we can't commit turnovers. Well, get this. Baltimore outgained Buffalo 416 to 473 in this game, converted 7 of 10 third down situations, and they averaged 7.3 yards per play. Each of those stats bested Buffalo. However, Baltimore turned the ball over 3 times, and Buffalo didn't commit 1. The question now is this finally going to be the year for the Buffalo Bills? Kansas City Chiefs are next.
Yeah, it's a pretty good formula to beat the Ravens when you hold Derrick Henry to 84 yards. If you recall, Bruce, Week 4 when they played, Baltimore blew out Buffalo, and Derrick Henry had 87 yards on the first carry of that game, so quite the difference. Good for Buffalo for adjusting and stopping him. And yeah, Josh Allen's going to the AFC Championship. It's likely, in my opinion, the winner of that game is going to host the Lombardi on February 9th. No disrespect to the Eagles or the Commanders, but I think these are the top 2 teams in the NFL right now. And boy, do I hope Josh Allen can get it done. I hope he gets the MVP and caps off an amazing season with the Lombardi Trophy. Since Detroit can't win it, I'll go ahead and root for our fellow friends in the AFC, I would say the Buffalo Bills, to get this one done and dethrone the evil empire that is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Game's almost a pick. The Chiefs are a slight 1.5 point favorite, according to Vegas. So they agree, Ryan. This is a toss-up. But again, to beat somehow, some way, Kansas City gets it. Until somebody proves to me that you can beat Kansas City, I got to go with the Chiefs. But more importantly than my opinion, Mark Lawrence is next. One of the top handicappers in the country. He's next on Bonus Time with Drennan to predict the 2 conference championship games here on the Big Play Sports Network. Well, so glad to welcome back to our show Mark Lawrence, top handicapper in the country, college and pro football. Mark, the editor-publisher of the Playbook, playbooksports.com. We have featured Mark on my shows, not only here on Big Play, but other radio and television assignments I've had throughout my career. This year we couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts with Mark and so many obligations he has by appearing on radio and TV shows all over the country. But we're able to get him here for these 2 championship games and the Super Bowl as well. Mark, my old friend, how you doing?
I'm doing just terrific, Bruce. I haven't seen you in that long of a while, so I'm going to wish you a Happy New Year and hope that 2025 is a good year for you and everybody.
Absolutely, partner. Great to have you back. First things first, before I get to these pro games and have you handicap them, what'd you think of Ohio State and the college football playoff format this year?
Well, I loved having 12 games in there. It was, just I guess it's like going to a buffet. The more food there is, the more chance you're going to find something good. You hope that you will anyway. But boy, did it work out well for the Buckeyes. After that loss to Michigan, you'd have thought they were going to run Ryan Day out of town as fast as they possibly could. And now he's the CEO of Ohio State football.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What a great job by the Buckeyes. And Dan Walken from USA Today put it best. And you could see this evolving. It's all about the talent in college football. And Ohio State is just loaded with talent. You could see that. I don't know if it's buying the players. I don't know how they get them there. I'm sure they're paying a lot of money. It's a $20 million roster, they say.
Right.
But it was sure nice to see that happen, though. And something, Bruce, I got to say this also in parting. Tip of the hat to Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, and a great job that program did
Yes.
this year. I mean,
Yes.
they were in the game almost to the end, even when they were outplayed.
Yes.
When Ohio State stormed back on them, they were still knocking on the door in the end, and they just didn't quit. So it was a great game to watch. Good job by both teams.
In a previous segment that I did in the today's show, Mark, I said the same thing. Got to give them credit. Their future's bright with Marcus Freeman, and I wonder how Kelly feels. He left there to go to LSU to have a better chance to get to the national championship.
Yeah, it's all evolving right in front of his eyes,
Yeah. Yeah. Let me get to the pro games. You have an interesting tidbit about these 4 divisional games this last weekend.
Yeah, the 4 teams that have arrived at the championship round this week, who won those divisional games last week, shared one common denominator. And simply put, it was the fact that they won those games and were out-yarded in each contest. And I run this through an AI query that I did, artificial intelligence query. And the chances of that happening in a 4-game schedule of 4 teams winning each of those games and being out-yarded by an average of 90 yards a game, the odds of that happening, Bruce, are 10 million to 1.
Wow.
That's what we've got on tap here this particular weekend. Just the fact that it all happened in 4 games, 4 days, yada, 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 boom, boom, boom. So really a statistical anomaly, to say the least.
Well, let's get to handicapping these 2 big games. First, let's start off with Philadelphia, -6 against Washington. How about this Washington team with a rookie quarterback, brand new owner, brand new GM, brand new coach, a rookie quarterback? They knock off the Lions. What a shocker. What a disappointing finish to the season for Detroit. But they got their work cut out for them against this fabulous Philadelphia defense, especially in Philly. They split their 2 previous games this year, but this is for all the marbles.
Yeah, it is. And I think the one thing that might work in Washington's favor, if there's such a thing that will work for them, is the fact that they do know Philadelphia. It's a division opponent. Like you said, they played twice this year. They're quite familiar with Philadelphia. The negative side of this, Bruce, is this is the 4th straight road game for Washington, and it's the 5th straight home game for Philadelphia. That's a tough nut to have to crack here if you're Washington and have to go into that. Then you got that rookie quarterback. Can he continue this masterful play that he's done? By far, hands down, rookie of the year in the National Football League. But I kind of think it's all going to come to an end here, Bruce. You got a real strong defense, as you said, and a real strong running game by Philadelphia. I think Washington meets their Waterloo this week.
Yeah. And how about Barkley? What he's meant to that team, very well worth all the money they've paid him. And the complementing of Hurts passing with his running is really formidable, Mark.
It's incredible. And, the easiest shortcut, or you want to say a Cliff Notes version of handicapping the National Football League, is just go look at the teams that run the ball successfully, Bruce. They're the top 5 ranked teams. They're always in the playoffs. They always make money against the spread. And you had Baltimore and Philadelphia, number 1 and number 2 in the conference here. Baltimore came a whisker away from advancing. Philadelphia is dominant because of Saquon Barkley here. It's going to be very tough to knock this Philadelphia team over.
Let's get to the other one. Vegas has it practically a pick game. Kansas City, the defending champs at Arrowhead, a 1 or a 2-point favorite against this fabulous Buffalo team. Allen versus Jackson, the 2 top candidates for MVP. And Allen came out on top. A couple of mistakes by Baltimore cost them, and it's got to be extremely disappointing for them to fall to Buffalo. But Buffalo's got to prove that they can beat Kansas City in the playoffs. They can beat them in the regular season, but the playoffs, and especially at Arrowhead, how do you see this big matchup?
Well, I can look at both teams and say they perhaps arguably shouldn't be here because of statistically the way they underperformed last week, but it applies to both teams. You look at this Kansas City football team coming in here, they have not turned the ball over one time in their last 8 straight games. This team protects the football like no other team. So if you're not going to beat yourself, you have a pretty good chance of winning a football game if you have the talent on hand. And you have that here with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. You look at AFC teams in championship games the last 18 times. The home team has won 15 of those 18 games. That's sort of ominous against Buffalo in this sense for them to have to do that. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes and how good he's been in the playoffs. 16-3 in his career, 5-0 straight up and against the spread against better than 750 opponents here. I'm going to go with Kansas City here, Bruce. I'm a big underdog lover, as you know, but this game is, like you said, sort of in the pickish range here right now. There's a lot of love for Buffalo here all of a sudden, and anti-Kansas City, largely because they don't win games impressively. But the fact of the matter is it's still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and I think they're going to be really tough to beat at Kansas City. Give me Kansas City in the game.
What were they, about 50-50 covering the spread, the Chiefs, this year? They won ugly so many times. They just found a way to win so many games, but they were giving points all season long.
Yeah, they were the kings of the close call games, Bruce. Winning games by a touchdown or less. That's Kansas City. That's their MO. That's what they do. And you can throw salt on that wound and say, good teams shouldn't do that, but 2 Super Bowl wins in a row and they're knocking on the door for 3. I wouldn't call this a bad Super Bowl prospect team at all for Kansas City here. They know what they're doing. Andy Reid knows what he's doing. They'll waltz with this Buffalo team and they'll probably end up winning it in the end, some way, somehow, by the miracle of who knows what. They got a lot of breaks this football season here, but you know something? All you have to do is beat who's in front of you. That's what Kansas City will be focused on this week.
Before I let you go, some of you may not realize Mark is originally from the Cleveland area, so his roots and ties are still there. What do you think about the Browns and what the dilemma that they find themselves in, Mark? I mean, to tell you, it is, wow. What do they do?
Well, I think you have to start at the quarterback position, Bruce. Every team we're talking about the playoffs here. They have quarterbacks that lead them to the promised land, and Cleveland was really quarterback less this football season. They're not going anywhere at Deshaun Watson. I think that door is just about closed. I think they're going to have to focus on finding a good quarterback now, whether it's in a trade or they want to recycle Kirk Cousins. Who knows what will happen there? But they have to get this quarterback in place, Bruce, because they do have the talent there. We see it on the defensive line. We see it on the talent offensively here as well. But get a quarterback, get something for Kevin Stefanski to work with, and then make this team competitive. They weren't only, remember, just 2 years ago, they were in the playoffs. So this is a football team you can't give up on. A bad season, yes. But let's see what Barry can do in the draft this football season.
The one and only Mark Lawrence. Can't tell you how great it is to have you back. We'll be looking forward to featuring you to handicap the Super Bowl. That's Mark Lawrence, the editor-publisher of the Playbook, playbooksports.com. Thanks, Mark.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Bruce. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk with you when the Super Bowl gets here.
All right, buddy. And Ask Bruce segment next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. All right, thanks for joining us today. We always conclude the show with the Ask Bruce segment. Fire away, Ryan.
Alrighty, Bruce, start with the Cavaliers here. Hey, Bruce, would you be fine if the Cavaliers stand pat at the trade deadline, or do you think this roster has any needs, whether it's a big move or even an under-the-radar move to address?
I will be fine. I am just so totally impressed with what they are doing this year. I love the way Atkinson is using this bench, getting everybody involved. That gives me hope for the playoffs. I'd be perfectly fine. I don't know how you can improve them. And who would you move? No, I'm fine with them standing pat, and I think they will.
All right, moving over to the Browns. Hey, Bruce, does the Commanders' success this year make you want to at all walk back your comments about the Browns needing a full rebuild, or do you think that's still the correct route to go?
Well, I do, because I can't see in the next 2-3 years the Browns being a serious Super Bowl contender. By then, how old will Garrett be? Chubb's going to be gone. Batonio will be at the end of his career if he's still on the team at all. So, yeah, I stand by what I said because the Watson experiment is obviously a failure. And I said from the get-go, even though I supported the move because of the Mayfield thing, but I said if it fails, it's going to set the franchise back at least 5 years, and I mean at least.
All right, flipping over to baseball now. Hey, Bruce, because of the Dodgers' ungodly payroll and no signs of slowing down, do you foresee a lockout coming in the near future?
No. Too much money at stake for both the players, owners. I don't see that. I think that there's going to be a chance of more and more fans being priced out for the family outing, if you will, taking the kids to see a big league game. It's becoming just too expensive for many families. And that's a sad thing when you think about, especially as old as I am, and remember back to when I was a kid. Heck, you could go to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field and sit in the bleachers for $1. $1. So, yeah, I think that the sport has some serious concerns financially, but there's too much money at stake for both the players and the owners. I don't see a lockout in the near future, no.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce, do you think Manny Ramirez should be in the Hall of Fame? He got 34.3% of the vote this year.
I know, but doesn't he fall into the same category as Rafael Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, McGuire, Bonds? I mean, are we of the belief that he never juiced up? You look at his physique when he went to Boston. I think he juiced up. So if does it set a precedent with those aforementioned guys? If it does, and if you believe in that, then no, you can't put him in without putting the others in, right?
I'd say that's fair. All right, last one real quick here. Hey, Bruce, in your opinion, does the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry mean less now that you can lose but still go on to win the national championship?
Absolutely, as I addressed in the very first segment to lead off our show. No question about it. Not just our rivalry, but certainly all the other rivalries in college football because of the expanded 12-team format. And I'm totally against these championship games, the conference championship games. It's going to backfire on the committee. I mean, Boise State and Arizona State getting a bye. Give me a break. Shouldn't have happened. That's all the time we have for this week's version. Bonus time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Bruce Drennan, along with my partner, Ryan Smith. I hope you have a great week. We'll be coming your way again from Cape Coral, Florida, down here again next week. Enjoy the championship games. Until next week's show, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio.